Reincarnation is a subject matter that I know a lot of Christians, they don't believe in reincarnation. They think it's something that is satanic. But there's actually reincarnation in the Bible.
That is true, Lawrence.
But just like the way in the satanic kingdom, we are people that are sent on a mission to come to the world to fulfill a particular mission. It's the same way that God allows saints who couldn't fulfill a mission to come back to the world and then fulfill that mission. So in case you still doubt me, as you follow me to the end of the video, you are going to see the dots that are connected to confirm that we have reincarnation. In this video, we shall look at two personalities who actually reincarnated and then came back to the world to fulfill a mission. So mostly what happens that the saints, sometimes God can allow a reincarnation when you have not been able to fulfill a certain mission that you're supposed to fulfill on the earth. Or at times, when people feel they were not treated fairly and they cry to God, there's a way God listens and He allows you to come back to the world. So let's first of all start with a personality known as Rahel in the Bible. So who is Rahel? Rahel was the wife to Jacob. Jacob was the man that gave birth to the 12 tribes of Israel. And then Rahel was one of his wives. In fact, interestingly, Jacob married two sisters. That's Leah and then Rahel. In fact, the story of Rahel is full of dramatic twists and turns of love, of hatred, in fact, it's just so unfortunate that has actually happened to Rahel. So she was not fortunate, though she was very pretty. She didn't get love from her parents. The father rather prioritized Leah over her, and this made her feel not loved by her father. So she thought that once she was going to get married, she would find love with her husband. Jacob, at the first sight, fell in love with Rahel when he went to visit his uncle Laban at Padam Aram. She was supposed to be the one to be given to Jacob to be married as his first wife. But in certain circumstances, twisted the whole story. And then Leah was instead given to Jacob to marry. And later on, there was an agreement, and Jacob decided to marry Rahel, his first love, in addition to Leah. And then the love that Rahel was searching for, unfortunately, they didn't find it in the marriage. But mostly what happened is that with the Hebrew culture, the first wife, the bed of the husband, is put in the room of the first wife. And this has a cultural meaning, which means that the first wife is the head of the wives, and then her children are going to bear the inheritance. Rahel, upon getting married to Jacob, she felt that once she was the first love, she felt that Jacob would have put his bed in her room. But that wasn't the case. Jacob rather went and put the bed in the room of Leah. So this where she felt she was not treated fairly and was robbed of her husband. And things continued, unfortunately, to go on a darker side on Rahel. But notwithstanding the fact that she was pretty, she wasn't fertile. But Leah was rather more fertile than her and gave birth to 6 children, whereas she gave birth to only 2. Even with the 2, she had a tough time before she could have these 2. In fact, the story continued to go on a more darker side, on the side of Rahel. Later on, when Jacob decided that he was moving back his family to the land of Canaan from Padam Aram, they got to a land known as Ramah. And at Ramah, the maid or the nurse of Rahel, she died. Therefore, that place was named Alon Bakut, which means the loss of a nurse. So Rahel became so sad that she has lost her nurse. And as if that was not enough for Rahel, when they go to Euphratah in Bethlehem, she was to give birth to, remember she already gave birth to Joseph. So when they got to Euphratah in the land of Bethlehem, she was to give birth to her child. And in giving birth, she was weeping and travailing in pain before she could give birth to her child. And upon giving birth to her child, she named the child Ben-Oni, which means I bore him in sorrow. It was later on that the father changed the name to Benjamin. So all these circumstances actually brought a very darker side and brought sorrow and pain to Rahel. And in fact, things continue to go more on a nosedive on the side of Rahel. And after giving birth to Benjamin in that pain, she died. So all these circumstances that unfolded, the sequence of events, made Rahel to have a very tragic end. And in the spirit realms, Rahel was weeping and crying. That's why if you now read Jeremiah chapter 31 verse 15, it says that in Ramah there was a voice heard, lamentation and bitter weeping, Rahel crying for her children and refusing to be comforted because they were no more. Now she's gone. The few children she has given birth to, who is to take care of them? So you see, so what happened is that though she was given a place to be comforted in paradise, she refused to be comforted and was weeping. And she was weeping at the crossroad between Ramah and Bethel. In fact, Bethel is close to Euphratah. So it was at this point that Jeremiah saw her in the spirit realms and decided to go and then comfort her. But then, as the Bible said, she refused to be comforted. But later on, God had to now send an angel to go and comfort her. So when the angel got to her, God made a deal with her that he's going to make a reshuffle where she's going to come back as Mary and give birth to a more glorious son that's going to be the Messiah of the world, and that is Yeshua. So this now comforted her, and that is how come that she came back as Mary. So now somebody will ask, how then is this confirmed that she's the one that came as Mary? So let's see Matthew chapter 2 verse 17 to 18. Remember when Mary gave birth to Jesus Christ, King Herod went around killing all babies. In fact, the number of babies was 2,000 babies, though this is not stated categorically in the Bible, but he killed about 2,000 babies. If you go to the verse 17, it says that, and this was fulfilled according to the prophet Jeremiah. And another instance that confirmed this sequence and connection is that if you look at where Jesus Christ is coming from, Jesus Christ is coming from Euphratah in the land of Bethlehem. And it is the same place that she was giving birth to Benjamin. And then after giving birth, she died. You see. And also when Mary was born, growing up, Mary was always walking with an ewe. And in fact, Rahel, what does Rahel mean in Hebrew? Rahel means ewe. You see, so Mary was always walking with an ewe, signifying the comeback of Rahel. And that is how come that she now came to give birth to Christ, who became the Messiah of the world. So this comforted Rahel because she has now come in a refined form and gave birth to the Messiah of the world, that's Yeshua. Now let's look at the case of Elijah, who reincarnated John the Baptist. Elijah was someone that was highly anointed by God. But Elijah was actually a demigod. He was highly anointed by God and was given 3 keys: the keys of the rain, the keys of the womb, and the keys to command, and it will happen. So he was tremendously anointed. And the issue is that God wanted Elijah to counter the fake prophets that were raised by Jezebel, the wife of King Ahab. If you are in touch with the Bible, you notice that Jezebel was having prophetic school, a satanic prophetic school, where she was raising fake prophets to counter the prophets of God. There was a circumstance where Elijah threw a challenge to those prophets, the prophets of Baal and then the prophets of Ashraf. He threw a challenge to them, and then that is how come that he killed these prophets. He killed about 400 Baal prophets and 450 Ashraf prophets. So Jezebel was so infuriated about this, and then threatened Elijah. If you read 1 Kings chapter 19 verse 2, and she was quoted as saying, "So let the gods do to me, and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time." And in fact, being intimidated by this, Elijah decided to run away to the caves. But here's the case: he had all the power to command fire upon Jezebel and kill her instantly. But out of cowardice, he ran away to the caves. But remember, when King Ahaziah, he sent the captains with the soldiers to go in and capture Elijah and bring him down from the mountains. They don't even get close to him. In a far distance away, he was able to command fire upon them, and they were consumed. But they had to go in an instance to go and beg him to come down from the mountains. So he had all the power to kill and destroy Jezebel and her prophets. But out of cowardice, he couldn't do it. But remember when Christ went to pray at the Garden of Gethsemane, and that's where when he prayed, his sweat was like a drop of blood, because he was to go to the cross. But it was Elijah and Moses that God sent to go and comfort Christ, so he could see his position in heaven. So he wasn't just an ordinary prophet. So being frustrated with the circumstances, the situation, at a point, he even asked God to take away his life. So God had to send him to Abel Meholah to go and anoint a man known as Elisha. So if you look at Elijah was a born prophet, but Elisha was a prophet of impartation. So the two cannot have the same amount of anointing, like the same amount of power. And then after that, he was taken away in a whirlwind. So that means that he couldn't fulfill the mission of which he came to the earth. And he had to come back again in the form of John the Baptist. So let's see how that his coming back is confirmed as the personality John the Baptist. If you read Luke chapter 1 verse 17, when John the Baptist was born, and then the Bible says that he shall come in the spirit of Elijah. And this prophecy, but this also confirmed in the book of Malachi. If you read Malachi chapter 4, verse 4, 5, and 6, you see that the prophecy is confirmed of John the Baptist coming in the spirit of Elijah. And then look at the two of them. If you look at the two of them, mostly Elijah was mostly in the wilderness. And the same way, John the Baptist was mostly in the wilderness. You see, also all these are reincarnations that is happening in the Bible. You see, in fact, reincarnation simply means that a person coming in a refined spirit to fulfill a task he probably could not fulfill, or a particular mission of which the person has been sent to fulfill in the world. So what do you think? Do you think there are other personalities like that in the Bible that reincarnated that I didn't mention in this video? And you can also add your comments, questions, and your submissions. So thank you for sticking and staying around from the beginning to the end of this video.
In Christ alone.
Thank you for visiting the Seeking the Light 300 channel. Subscribe for more content.